The fluorescent lights of the coffee shop flickered slightly as I sat across from my sister-in-law, Elena, my hands wrapped around a decaf latte, one of the few pleasures I allowed myself during this pregnancy. I was 7 months along, my belly prominent beneath my loose sweater, and exhaustion had become my constant companion. "I need to tell you something," Elena said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Her eyes darted around the nearly empty cafe as if checking for eavesdroppers. "It's about Patricia, my mother-in-law." Of course it was about Patricia. Elena pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she scrolled through her messages. "She's been texting me, a lot, and some of the things she's saying." She paused, taking a deep breath. "They're really concerning." I leaned forward, my heart already beginning to race. Patricia and I had always had a complicated relationship. From the moment my husband, Daniel, introduced us 4 years ago, there had been tension. She was the type of mother who believed no woman would ever be good enough for her son. But lately, since we announced the pregnancy, things had escalated to a level I never could have anticipated. "What kind of things?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Elena turned her phone toward me. The messages filled the screen, dozens of them, sent over the course of several weeks. My eyes scanned the words, and with each line, my stomach twisted tighter. "I've been doing research on custody laws. Did you know grandparents have rights in this state? I'm documenting everything, every little mistake she makes, every time she seems tired or overwhelmed. This baby needs a stable environment. I can provide that. I've already been in touch with a family lawyer. Just getting information, of course. If it comes down to it, I will fight for my granddaughter, by any means necessary." The messages went on and on. Patricia detailed her plans with disturbing clarity. She talked about building a case against me, painting me as an unfit mother before the baby was even born. She mentioned installing cameras, gathering witnesses, even hinted at more extreme measures if legal channels didn't work in her favor. She used the word kidnapping, Elena said quietly. In one message she deleted, but I screenshot it first. She said if the courts wouldn't give her custody, she'd have no choice but to take matters into her own hands to protect the baby from you. My hands began to shake. The warm cup nearly slipped from my grasp. "This can't be real. She can't actually be planning this." "I'm so sorry," Elena said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I know she's family, and I know this puts me in an impossible position. But you're carrying my niece. I couldn't keep this from you. You need to protect yourself and that baby." I sat there in stunned silence for several minutes, my mind racing through every interaction I'd had with Patricia over the past months. The way she'd insert herself into every doctor's appointment, showing up uninvited. How she'd started buying nursery furniture for her own home without asking us. The constant text messages asking about my diet, my activities, my stress levels. Not out of concern, but as if she were building a file. "What do I do?" I finally asked. Elena's expression was grim. "You need to tell Daniel, and you need to get ahead of this. Document everything. Talk to a lawyer. Maybe even contact Child Protective Services first, so she can't spin some narrative about you." The drive home felt surreal. I kept thinking about Patricia's face at our gender reveal party 3 months ago. The way her eyes had lit up when we announced we were having a girl. The way she'd immediately started talking about her baby girl, correcting herself only when Daniel gave her a look. How she'd pulled me aside later and said, "You know, if you ever feel overwhelmed after the birth, I'm happy to take her for extended periods, days, weeks, whatever you need." At the time, I thought she was being helpful. Now, those words took on a sinister meaning. That evening, I told Daniel everything. We sat in our living room, the half-assembled crib in the corner serving as a reminder of what we were fighting to protect. I showed him the screenshots Elena had sent me, watched his face transform from confusion to disbelief to anger as he read through his mother's messages. "This has to be some kind of misunderstanding," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maybe she's just anxious about being a grandmother. Maybe she's expressing herself poorly." "Daniel," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "she literally mentioned kidnapping our child." He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture he always made when stressed. I just, I can't believe my own mother would do this. There has to be an explanation." Over the next few days, I took action. I called a family law attorney who confirmed that while grandparent rights existed in our state, they were difficult to enforce and typically only applied in cases where the parents were proven unfit or the grandparents had an established relationship with the child. Since our baby wasn't even born yet, Patricia had no legal standing. However, the lawyer cautioned, if she's serious about pursuing this, she could make your life very difficult. False reports to CPS, harassment, attempts to interfere with your parenting. These things can be emotionally and financially draining, even if they're baseless. I also made a call to Child Protective Services. The caseworker I spoke with was sympathetic and made notes in their system about Patricia's threats. "This way, if she does make a report against you, we'll have context," she explained. "We'll know there's a family dispute and that you were proactive about reaching out to us first. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it helps establish your credibility." I started documenting everything. Every text message from Patricia, every voicemail, every social media post where she referred to my baby or shared her opinions about how we should be preparing for parenthood. I created a detailed timeline of concerning behaviors, backed up by screenshots and recordings where legally permissible. Daniel watched all of this with increasing unease. "Do you really think this is necessary?" he asked one night as I organized my documentation. "Your mother threatened to take our child," I replied. "Yes, I think it's necessary." Finally, after a week of preparation, Daniel agreed we needed to confront her directly. We decided to do it over the phone, with me listening in, but letting Daniel take the lead. I wanted her to hear from her son that her behavior was unacceptable, that he was on my side, that we were a united front. We made the call on a Wednesday evening. Patricia answered on the second ring, her voice bright and cheerful. "Daniel, I was just thinking about you. How's my little grandbaby doing?" "Mom, we need to talk," Daniel said, his voice tense. "I'm putting you on speaker. My wife is here." The warmth in Patricia's voice cooled noticeably. "Oh, I see. Mom, we know about your plans," Daniel continued. "Elena showed us your messages, the ones about trying to get custody of our baby, about documenting things to make my wife look like an unfit mother." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then, suddenly, Patricia erupted. "That is a complete lie," she shrieked. "I never said any such thing. Elena is a vindictive little troublemaker who's always been jealous of my relationship with you. How dare you accuse me of something so horrible?" "Mom, we have screenshots. Those can be faked. Technology these days, anyone can make anything look real. I cannot believe my own son would think I'm capable of something so awful." The crying started then, loud, dramatic sobs that made it almost impossible to continue the conversation. Between gasps, Patricia wailed about how hurt she was, how betrayed she felt, how she'd only ever wanted the best for us and the baby. "I've done nothing but support you two from the beginning," she cried. "I've bought gifts, offered to help, tried to be involved in this pregnancy, and this is how you repay me? By accusing me of trying to steal your child?" Daniel's resolve was already wavering. I could see it in his face, the way his jaw softened, the way his eyes became glassy with his own unshed tears. His mother had always been able to manipulate him this way, pulling at the strings of guilt and familial obligation that had been woven into him since childhood. "Mom, please calm down," he said. "We're just concerned." Concerned? Concerned. You should be concerned about making false accusations against your own mother. Do you know how much this hurts? After everything I've sacrificed for you, after raising you alone when your father left, after working 2 jobs to give you a good life? And there it was, the guilt card she always played, the reminder of her sacrifices, her struggles, the debt Daniel could never fully repay. I watched helplessly as Patricia's tantrum continued for another 20 minutes. She cycled through denial, anger, hurt, and more guilt tripping. She brought up every difficult moment from Daniel's childhood, every time she'd been there for him, every sacrifice she'd made. By the end of the call, Daniel was apologizing to her for upsetting her, promising he'd talk to Elena about spreading lies, and assuring his mother that of course he knew she'd never do anything to harm our family. When the call finally ended, I sat in stunned silence. "She was really hurt," Daniel said quietly. "Maybe we got this wrong. Maybe Elena misunderstood. Daniel, we saw the messages. I know, but maybe they were taken out of context. Maybe—" I stood up, my pregnant belly making the movement awkward. "I need some air." I spent the next hour walking around our neighborhood, trying to process what had just happened. Patricia had completely turned the situation around, making herself the victim and us the villains. And Daniel, despite all the evidence, was already second-guessing everything because of her emotional manipulation. When I returned home, Daniel was subdued. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know she was being dramatic, but I do believe we should keep her at a distance for now, for the baby's safety. I'm with you on that. It was something at least." But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. Over the next week, I took steps to protect our privacy. I went through all my social media accounts and blocked Patricia. I made sure my privacy settings were as tight as possible, limiting who could see posts about the pregnancy or the baby. I didn't want her having any access to photos, any information about our lives, any window into our world that she could use or manipulate. Daniel blocked her too, though he did it with visible reluctance. "This feels extreme," he said as he clicked the block button on his phone. "She threatened our child," I reminded him. "Extreme is necessary." Patricia noticed immediately. The text messages started flowing to Daniel's phone. Messages from her, from other family members she'd recruited to her cause, all asking why we'd blocked her, what she'd done to deserve this treatment. Couldn't we all just talk about this like adults? Daniel fielded them as best he could, repeating the same message: "We need space right now. This is for the safety of our family." I also made the difficult decision to uninvite Patricia from our baby shower. The event was planned for 2 weeks out, organized by my best friend and my mother. Originally, Patricia had been on the guest list. Now, the thought of her being there, surrounded by presents for her baby, playing the doting grandmother while simultaneously plotting to take our daughter, it was unbearable. When Daniel told her about the uninvitation, I could hear her screaming through the phone from across the room. He held the phone away from his ear, wincing as she unleashed another torrent of accusations and tears. "You're destroying this family," she shouted. "You're keeping me from my own granddaughter before she's even born. What kind of son does this to his mother?" Daniel's responses were weak, apologetic, but he held firm on the decision. When the call ended, he looked exhausted. "This is tearing me apart," he admitted. "I know," I said, softening slightly, "but we're doing the right thing." The baby shower came and went. It was a beautiful afternoon filled with friends, family, games, and gifts. My mother gave a touching speech about the journey into motherhood. My best friend organized ridiculous games that had everyone laughing. For a few hours, I forgot about Patricia and her threats. I was just a woman celebrating the impending arrival of her first child, surrounded by people who loved and supported me. But in the back of my mind, I knew Patricia's absence was conspicuous. I knew she was probably at home, stewing in resentment, planning her next move. Life settled into an uneasy routine. I was 8 months pregnant now, moving slowly, sleeping poorly, counting down the weeks until my due date. Daniel had been attentive, supportive, and seemed to be honoring our agreement to keep his mother at a distance. When I'd ask him if he'd heard from her, he'd shake his head. No, nothing. Radio silence. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that we'd gotten through to him, that he understood the severity of the situation. Then came the day that shattered that trust completely. It was a Tuesday. Daniel usually got home from work around 6 in the evening. At 7, he still wasn't home. I texted him, "Where are you?" "Sorry, running late. Traffic. Be home soon." He finally walked through the door at 7:15 with a strange expression on his face. Part guilt, part forced cheerfulness. He was carrying a gift bag, one of those glossy ones from an upscale baby boutique, and he was smiling too widely. "Sorry I'm late," he said, setting his briefcase down and holding out the gift bag. "But look what I got for you." Something in my gut twisted. "Where did you get that?" "It's a surprise," he said, still with that too bright smile. "Here, open it." I took the bag, my hands unsteady. Inside was wrapped in tissue paper, and beneath that, a beautiful hand-knit baby blanket in soft pink and cream. There was a card tucked in the side of the bag. I pulled it out and opened it. The front of the card had a generic "Welcome Baby Girl" message with cute illustrations. But inside, written in Patricia's distinctive handwriting, were words that made my blood run cold. "To my baby, too. I can't wait to meet her. Love always, Grandma." My baby, too. Those exact words. The same phrase Patricia had used repeatedly. The phrase that felt like a claim of ownership rather than an expression of love. "Where did you get this?" I asked again, my voice harder now. Daniel's smile faltered. "My mom wanted to send a gift for the baby shower. Since she couldn't be there, she wanted to—" "Where did you get this, Daniel?" He sighed, running his hand through his hair. That tell again. "I met up with her, just for a few minutes, on my way home from work." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. "You met up with her after everything we agreed on? After everything she's done?" "It was just for a minute. She texted me, said she wanted to drop off a gift, and I agreed to meet her in a parking lot. That's it. 5 minutes tops. And you lied to me about it." "I didn't lie. I've been asking you for weeks if you've heard from her. You said no. Every single time, you said no." Daniel's face reddened. "I didn't want to upset you. You're so pregnant and stressed, and I just thought—" "You thought you'd sneak around behind my back and meet with the woman who threatened to kidnap our child?" The argument escalated from there. Daniel insisted it was harmless, just a gift exchange, nothing more. I demanded to know what else they'd talked about, whether this was the first time they'd met, whether he'd been in contact with her all along. That's when I noticed something else. Daniel had pulled out his wallet to show me something, and I caught a glimpse of several bills inside. "How much cash do you have?" I asked suddenly. He froze. "What?" "In your wallet. How much cash?" "I don't know, like $100. Why does it matter?" But I could see the lie in his eyes, the same expression he'd had when he walked in the door, guilt poorly hidden beneath forced normalcy. "Show me," I said. "This is ridiculous. Show me your wallet, Daniel." He hesitated for a long moment, and I knew. In that hesitation, I knew he was hiding something. Finally, reluctantly, He pulled out his wallet and opened it. Inside were several crisp $100 bills. That's more than $100, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Okay, fine. She gave me some money, for the baby, to help with expenses. How much? Does it matter? How much, Daniel? He closed his eyes. 200. She gave me $200 to give to you for baby things. I held out my hand. Give it to me. He pulled out $200 bills and handed them over. But something about the way he moved, the way his hand lingered in his wallet, told me there was more. All of it, I said. I want to see all the money in your wallet right now. You're being paranoid. All of it. The standoff lasted for what felt like minutes, but was probably only seconds. Finally, Daniel pulled out his wallet again and removed the remaining bills. My heart sank as I counted. $1,000 in $100 bills, fresh, crisp, like they'd come straight from a bank. She gave you $1,000, I said, my voice hollow. Daniel couldn't meet my eyes. She wanted to help, and she told you not to tell me the real amount, didn't she? His silence was answer enough. Didn't she? I pressed. She said. He swallowed hard. She said if you asked, I should tell you it was less, that you'd overreact if you knew the real amount, that you'd see it as manipulation when really it's just a grandmother wanting to help her kids financially. I felt tears burning in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. She's buying her way back into your life, into our lives, and you're letting her. It's not like that? Then what is it like, Daniel? Explain to me how taking $1,000 in secret from the woman who threatened our child isn't manipulation. She's my mother. She loves us. She loves controlling us. She sees our daughter as her property, her do-over baby, her chance to be a mother again. And you're so blind to it because she's been conditioning you your whole life to accept this behavior. The argument spiraled from there. Daniel accused me of being unfair, of judging his mother too harshly, of turning him against his own family. I accused him of being manipulated, of choosing his mother over his wife and child, of breaking the promises he'd made to protect our family. Finally, exhausted and emotionally drained, I said something that needed to be said. She is manipulating you. Can't you see that? The money, the guilt trips, the tears, all of it. It's calculated to break down your boundaries and let her back in. Daniel's response made my heart sink. That's not a very nice thing to say about my mother. Not a very nice thing to say. As if being nice mattered more than being truthful, as if politeness should trump safety. I placed both hands on my swollen belly, feeling my daughter kick inside me. My stance hasn't changed, I said quietly but firmly. Your mother will not be around our baby. Period. If you can't support that, then we have a much bigger problem. That night, Daniel slept on the couch. We didn't speak the next morning as we got ready for work. The silence in our home was heavy, oppressive, filled with all the things we weren't saying. I called Elena. I needed someone who understood the dynamics of Patricia's manipulation, someone who could help me figure out what to do next. He met with her? Elena said, her voice filled with dismay. After everything? And took money from her. $1,000. Elena was quiet for a moment. She's grooming him, she finally said. That's what this is. She's systematically breaking down his defenses, making him feel guilty for setting boundaries, then rewarding him when he breaks those boundaries. It's textbook manipulation. What do? I asked, feeling more helpless than ever. You hold firm, Elena said. You don't let her near that baby, and you make it clear to Daniel that he has to choose, not between you and his mother, but between healthy boundaries and dysfunction, between his wife and child, or his mother's need for control. Over the next few days, I did a lot of thinking. I realized that this wasn't just about one incident or one secret meeting. This was about a pattern of behavior. Patricia's inability to respect boundaries, Daniel's inability to maintain them, and the toxic dynamic that would only get worse once the baby arrived. I made an appointment with a family therapist. I told Daniel we were going, not as a request, but as a requirement. If we're going to make this work, if we're going to be parents together, we need help, I said. We need someone neutral to help us navigate this. Over the next few days, I did a lot of thinking. I realized that this wasn't just about one incident or one secret meeting. This was about a pattern of behavior. Patricia's inability to respect boundaries, Daniel's inability to maintain them, and the toxic dynamic that would only get worse once the baby arrived. I made an appointment with a family therapist. I told Daniel we were going, not as a request, but as a requirement. If we're going to make this work, if we're going to be parents together, we need help, I said. We need someone neutral to help us navigate this. To his credit, Daniel agreed. I think part of him knew we were at a breaking point. Our first therapy session was difficult. The therapist, a woman named Dr. Rivera, listened patiently as we both told our sides of the story. She asked probing questions about Daniel's childhood, about Patricia's parenting style, about the patterns in their relationship. What I'm hearing, Dr. Rivera said at the end of that first session, is that you, Daniel, grew up in an enmeshed family system where boundaries were either non-existent or routinely violated. Your mother's love came with conditions and expectations, and now, as an adult, you struggle to disappoint her even when her demands are unreasonable or harmful. Daniel nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. And you, Dr. Rivera continued, turning to me, are rightfully concerned about protecting your child from what you see as a real threat, but you're also feeling isolated and unsupported, like you're fighting this battle alone. I nodded, my own tears finally falling. The work we need to do here, Dr. Rivera said, is help Daniel understand the difference between honoring his mother and being controlled by her, and help both of you create a united front as parents. It wasn't a quick fix. Therapy never is, but it was a start. I'm writing this update now, 9 months pregnant, just days away from my due date. The situation with Patricia remains unresolved in many ways, but there have been some important changes. Daniel has been attending individual therapy in addition to our couples sessions. He's beginning to see the patterns Dr. Rivera talked about, the ways his mother has used guilt, money, and emotional manipulation to maintain control over his life. It's painful for him to realize, to acknowledge that his mother's love has always come with strings attached. We've established firm boundaries. Patricia is not allowed at the hospital when I give birth. She will not be given our address when we bring the baby home. She will not have unsupervised access to our daughter, and any supervised visits, if we decide to allow them at all, will be strictly limited and on our terms. Daniel has been better about enforcing these boundaries, though it's clear it costs him emotionally every time. Patricia has ramped up her campaign, now involving other family members. She's painted herself as the victim, the grandmother being cruelly kept from her grandchild. Some of Daniel's relatives have taken her side, sending us messages about how we're being unreasonable, how family is everything, how we'll regret this decision. But others have supported us. Elena, of course, has been unwavering, and surprisingly, Daniel's uncle reached out recently to say he understood our position. Patricia has always been intense, he said. I've seen her behavior with my own kids. You're doing the right thing protecting your daughter. I've also connected with other women online who've dealt with similar situations. Mothers-in-law who overstep boundaries, who see grandchildren as possessions, who threaten custody or worse. It's been validating to know I'm not alone, not crazy, not overreacting. This is a real pattern of behavior, and there's a name for it: grandparent alienation syndrome. parental enmeshment, emotional manipulation. The terminology varies, but the dynamic is the same. As for the money, we returned it. Well, I returned it. I mailed it back to Patricia with a note that said simply, "We don't need financial assistance from you. Please respect our boundaries." She responded with a 20-minute voicemail full of crying and accusations. I listened to about 30 seconds before deleting it. The hardest part of all of this has been watching Daniel struggle. I know he loves his mother. I know this is tearing him apart. But I also know that his first responsibility now is to his daughter, to our family, to the home we're creating together. Last night, as we lay in bed, my daughter kicking vigorously in my belly, Daniel put his hand on my stomach and said quietly, "I'm sorry for the secret meeting, for taking the money, for not being strong enough at first." "You're getting stronger," I told him. "That's what matters." "I'm scared," he admitted. "I'm scared of losing my mom, but I'm more scared of losing you and our daughter. I'm scared of failing as a father the way I feel like my mom failed me as a mother in some ways." It was the most honest he'd been through this entire ordeal. "You won't fail," I said. "We'll figure this out together." As I write this final update, my daughter is 3 weeks old, sleeping in her bassinet next to our bed. She's perfect, tiny fingers, button nose, a head full of dark hair. I've never felt love like this, fierce and protective and all-consuming. Patricia still doesn't know she's been born. We didn't tell anyone when I went into labor, kept the birth private, just the two of us and the medical staff. We waited 2 weeks before even announcing on social media, and when we did, Patricia was still blocked. She found out through other family members, of course. The voicemails and text messages from her to Daniel's phone have been incessant, but he hasn't responded, not once. "I just want to meet my granddaughter," she pleaded in one message. "How can you keep a grandmother from her grandchild? What have I done that's so terrible?" What has she done? She's threatened to take our child. She's manipulated her son. She's shown us clearly and repeatedly that she doesn't respect our role as parents or our authority over our own child. We haven't decided yet if we'll ever allow contact between Patricia and our daughter. Dr. Rivera has said it's possible, with very strict boundaries and probably supervised visits, but only if Patricia demonstrates real change. Therapy, acknowledgement of her behavior, genuine respect for our parenting decisions. So far, she's shown no willingness to do any of that. Some people might think we're being too harsh. Some people might think every child deserves to know their grandmother. But I know what it's like to grow up with a toxic family member who undermines your parents, who makes you feel like you're being fought over rather than loved. My own grandmother was like that, and the emotional scars lasted years. I won't put my daughter through that. I won't let her become a pawn in Patricia's need for control. Daniel has been amazing these past 3 weeks. He's taken to fatherhood with a tenderness and dedication that makes me fall in love with him all over again. He changes diapers, does middle-of-the-night feedings, sings lullabies in his off-key voice, and he hasn't wavered once on our boundaries with his mother. "I finally understand," he said to me last night as we watched our daughter sleep. "What you've been trying to tell me all along. My job isn't to make my mother happy. My job is to protect my daughter, and sometimes those two things are incompatible." It's been a long, difficult journey. I'm sure there are more challenges ahead. Patricia isn't the type to give up easily, and I'm prepared for years of boundary enforcement, of explaining to my daughter why we're keeping her safe in ways that might not make sense to her when she's young. But for now, in this quiet moment with my daughter sleeping peacefully and my husband by my side, I feel at peace with our decision. We're doing the right thing. We're protecting our family. And that's all that matters. To anyone else dealing with a similar situation, my advice is this: trust your instincts, document everything, set boundaries early, and enforce them consistently. Don't let guilt or family pressure override your judgment about what's best for your child. And most importantly, make sure you and your partner are truly united, because these situations will test your relationship in ways you can't imagine. It's not easy. Some days, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. But when I look at my daughter's perfect little face, I know without a doubt that every difficult decision, every uncomfortable confrontation, every moment of standing firm against pressure, it's all worth it. She deserves parents who will protect her, even when it's hard, even when it means disappointing family, even when it means being the bad guy in someone else's narrative. She deserves to grow up knowing she's safe, loved, and valued for who she is, not as a possession to be fought over, but as a precious individual with parents who will always put her well-being first. And that's exactly what we're going to give her.